Alrighty guys, this is my first attempt at doing a audio slash crude video recap as opposed to a written one. I may still do both, but I'll give us a shot and see how it goes. So as with everything I do, I'm winging it. This is not going to be edited. I'm just going with the flow and see what happens. So this is a recap of session 83, the Cold Lance Hope and Despair. You can come up with a cheesy little name. We'll call this the Cold Hard Recap. And in our last session, the party had just defeated a small group of gnomes that had captured a woman. This woman was a little white elf woman. I say white elf because she is essentially an albino elf. She has white skin, white hair, everything. Named Talia. After the battle, she pretty much shared that she had been tracking a kidnapper that had broken into her house and stole her daughter. They've been tracking the past 2 days. They lost the tracks during the snowfall the night before, and as they continued on the same trajectory or path that they were following before, they were ambushed by these gnomes. So the group stumbled upon that. Basically killed all of them, with the exception of the pack lord, which got away on one of the mounts and freed her. During the afternoon, the evening, she built a couple of pyres to basically send her two companions she was traveling with off to the afterlife. And that pretty much took most of the day, so the folks and the party decided to go ahead and camp nearby, not in the bloodbath here, but somewhere nearby. And during that encampment for the night, Aelin took the first watch. And during that first watch is when the party was introduced to the new character of Aldum. I hope I said his name right. Aldum is Jason's new character that is basically from a far off land. He did share with us. He's from a land called Halrua. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Had somewhat of a strange accent. Shared with the groups. I don't think anybody there at that time, it was only Aelin. Aelin hadn't heard of Halrua, or what he did hear of was very limited. So he started kind of filling me in of his homeland and how it had been destroyed, and just all very good, intriguing type of conversation. I don't think they ever really shared about why exactly Aldum was out walking alone along this trail, but Aelin, after having a few conversations with him, felt safe around him, invited him down to the fire, having more conversation. And shortly into their conversation, they were also met by another barbarian tribe party. Let me switch the map over here to the campsite thing here. So this is the campsite I kind of threw together the last second while they were doing this. But here's the campsite they were. Aelin was on watch, again, talking with Aldum, the new guy that showed up. The rest of everybody else was kind of sleeping. And then this barbarian patrol came up. And that's also where we met Kev's new character, As, is an elven divination wizard that seemed to be kind of out of place with the barbarian patrol himself. So, but was with them nonetheless. Struck up a conversation. The patrol was pretty much warning the group of a encampment they had ran into a little bit back, where they found a drow that had been killed by another barbarian patrol. So that's the only one they had seen on the patrol, but just wanted to warn everybody. To which Aelin then kind of informed them of the gnolls that they had attacked and helped free the woman by the name of Talia. During this conversation, pretty much everybody in the group kind of woke up during this conversation, and Talia's ears definitely perked up when she heard them talk about a drow camp and a dead drow a little bit south of here. Also, during that conversation, the patrol shared with the group of a sighting of another patrol that was heading to Bildabaris, barbarian patrol, but one of them had a small child in his arms, which I thought was very peculiar to be on patrol, but didn't think much of it. And that definitely got Talia all worked up, and she was ready to leave right then. And I believe it was Aelin that kind of calmed her down a little bit and told him that it'd be kind of silly to travel at night. More dangerous at night. They would leave first thing in the morning. They knew where she was going, and she was with the protection of the barbarian, so they were going to find her, just need to wait till morning. So Talia reluctantly kind of agreed to that, and then they all settled in for a long rest. But before they did that, the barbarian patrol here kind of split up. the two main barbarians kind of continue heading north to kind of warn folks of the gnolls and the drow now, and they instructed AS to kind of head south with this party and let the other patrols know of sightings of gnolls as well. So kind of divide and conquer, so to speak, this patrol. So AS is now with the rest of the party. So first thing in the morning, they all wake up and they start heading south. And AS points out the drow encampment that they had seen previously. They quickly ran to that camp and did a little investigation of their own. Talia was the first one to run over to pretty much the ambushed or ripped up or shredded tent and discovered the body of the drow, and she immediately recognized the drow as being the one who kidnapped her daughter. She proceeded to start stabbing the dead body over and over again, kind of like what she did with the gnolls once they freed her of her imprisonment from them. And everyone started trying to calm her down a little bit. During that trying to calm her down a little bit, they mentioned about trying to use Speak the Dead to talk to this drow to find out more information. Talia really wasn't interested in that, but she obliged anyway. She obliged by cutting off his head, and the drow, that is, cutting off the drow's head and sticking it onto a javelin that was stuck into the ground. As Goda started to prepare his speak to the dead spell, Veli was casting out detect magic, and he happened to find a magical stone smoking pipe. He wasn't able to determine what it did, but all he knew was magical. He tried to sneakily pocket that without anyone seeing it, but everybody saw him. He didn't roll that bad, but everyone else had high enough passive perception that they saw that he was pocketing something. They didn't know it's magical, but they did see him pocket that. So during Goda's Speak with the Dead on the drow, they pretty much determined that the drow was paid to kidnap the girl. Didn't know why, but his boss was a former, or maybe still, not really sure, didn't really define that, a red wizard of Thay by the name of Brennerman. And he told him that Brennerman, no, he didn't tell me anything. He just told him his boss was Brennerman and didn't know what he was going to do with the baby or why. A couple of the people in the party had heard the name before. I think one of them recognized Brennerman as the former Red Wizard of Thay, and the other one had said that they'd heard rumors that she had been turned into a lich about the same time frame, maybe 100 years ago. Again, that was rumor. Nothing was a fact, but just a little bit extra information to kind of freak the party out. So as soon as they got done speaking with the dead, didn't get any more good information out of the Dark Elf, the drow, Talia was ready to go. The rest of the folks were trying to figure out what to do next, whether they want to follow up on this whole Brennerman thing or what that meant for the whole horde attacking. But she said, F this. She hopped on Veli's horse and she started riding south. The rest of the party, getting somewhat maybe tired of her psychotic ways or whatever, just kind of let her go. They knew where she was going, and that's where they were going as well, so they just let her go, and they left camp shortly thereafter as well, but weren't really trying to keep up with Talia. They let her go. Let's see. Once they got down closer to Bildabaris, let me switch the map here to show you a little bit what Bildabaris is about. So Bildabaris is where they were heading to originally. They were going to go. They were sent there by Thalamun, the king of the barbarians, to speak with Stannin. Stannin is the leader of the Var clan. That's who Thalamun had left in charge in Bildabaris while Thalamun was out checking the barbarian lines north of the city. And Stannin had the capability to transport them to Mucklestones. Otherwise, it would be like a 7 to 10 day ride on horse. Again, the snow is getting worse, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow on the ground right now, and they're anticipating more, so they thought that Stannin's magical powers to get them to Mucklestones would be quicker. And they're, like I said, they're supposed to procure the services of the airship that's supposedly there, and use that airship to kind of resupply the lines north of the city, and troops. Be a lot quicker to do that than it would be taking horses through all the snow. So anyway, they made their way into Bildabaris, coming in roughly this gate up in here. And as they got into the city, they started hearing really quick the rumors of the crazy white lady that was looking for her baby. And they all kind of pointed her in the direction of where the Var clan pretty much resides, which is in this district. a Build-A-Bar. As a matter of fact, where I'm clicking there right now, that's the main, I guess, courtyard of where Stanton normally resides, and that's where they were all pointing her to. So as the crowd got closer into the courtyard here, they saw there had been a large crowd assembled right in the center of it, but couldn't see what was going on. There was a lot of shouting they could hear in the center of it, but they couldn't see. So Vigor, his little gnome or halfling self, I think it's a gnome, started kind of weaving his way through all the barbarian legs and quickly made his way up to the front. Nira took a little bit longer because she wasn't really, rushing through everybody, but she was trying to make her way through the crowd. And Aldum, on the other hand, decided that he wasn't going to wait. He pulled both of his shields up to his sides and started basically running through the crowd and knocking people over. So may have been his plan to distract them, don't really know, but end result was he ended up getting subdued by the barbarian horde that's basically around them. They're like 2 miles deep into this giant barbarian tent city, so to speak, and they take his shields away and they pretty much hold him down, restrain him to keep from basically knocking people over. I'm sure he got punched and kicked a few times during the process, but basically got restrained. So once Vigor got up to the front, about that same time, I think Aeolin, the little gnome monk, climbed on top of Victor, the giant half-orc, so he could see over the crowd. So those that could see saw it was Talia, the white elf, and this giant barbarian woman in the center of this mob of people. Talia had both her daggers out, and they're screaming it back and forth at each other, the elf and this huge barbarian woman. Barbarian woman also had in one of her arms a bundled, you can assume it's a baby, wrapped up in blankets. And she's kind of holding one arm out, keeping Talia at bay while she keeps the baby away. And they're screaming back and forth about the baby. The barbarian woman is saying she's mine, and Talia's basically saying no, she's not. She's always been mine. Look at her, and back and forth. So during this back and forth argument, Talia finally gets fed up and she leaps onto the barbarian and she stabs her twice with her daggers. At that point, you hear a loud booming voice, and Stannon, this individual right here, the leader of the Varge, steps through the crowd. The crowd kind of like parts for him, and he raises one hand in the air, and vines shoot out from the ground, and they grapple both Talia and the barbarian woman, and basically restrain them from hurting each other anymore. At the same time, while he did that, there was a barbarian man that came running out of the crowd, screaming something to Chloe, the barbarian woman. Not sure if he's a brother, if he's a husband, boyfriend, friend, whatever, but he proceeds to raise his hammer in a arc that would basically crush Talia's head. As he starts to swing, I think it was Aeus, the wizard, that cast something to basically force him to miss, which was a good thing because he actually rolled a critical, and it might have just killed Talia at that instant. So he missed. Also during that time frame, Victor and Aeolin, not Victor. Victor was still he was basically Aeolin's mount. But Aeolin started to kind of scream to the crowd to get their attention and tell them that Talia was the mother, that her baby had been kidnapped. The crowd kind of parted, so Victor and Aeolin started coming through at that point. Once the crowd kind of parted for Victor and Aeolin, let me switch this other map because I actually pulled this map up during this little fracas. This isn't really what the street looks like, but this is kind of what I went with. So in the middle of this big battle, again, we've got the white elf right here, and the barbarian woman, and all the crowd all around. So basically, when the crowd parted to allow Victor and Aeolin to come strolling in and kind of try to talk some sense into Stannon, Aeus, actually it's over here right now, Aeus was standing right about here at the end of the crowd that parted. Aeus actually cast Dispel Magic upon the vines that had these two kind of restrained. And thought she was being sneaky, but Stannon looked right at her as soon as she cast it and got real pissed off. Said something like, "How dare you?" And he ordered all his barbarian tribes to go and fetch Aeus as he recast the Entangle spell of the two women here. He also kind of told Brol to back off, which he did. Aeus promptly misty-stepped before any of the barbarian guards got to him, and she basically, or he, keep saying she, sorry Kev, he teleported into a little building off to the side over here, a storage building. No one was in there, in an attempt to try to hide. While all this is going on, little Vigor over here, he was at the front of the crowd. He had cast Mage Hand, and he also cast Reduce onto the little baby. This little token I ended up creating right here. And basically slipped the baby out of the Barbarian Woman's hands and proceeded to kind of, float the baby, a little 3 or 4 inch baby, up in the sky over here towards Boo Boo. Ended up dropping the baby down into Boo Boo's hands. Boo Boo was like, "Hey, looky here, little baby," and starts playing with him. All the while, this baby is screaming and crying. Several folks would have seen the baby kind of crying out "Mama" to Talia. So it was, I think some of the guys may have had reservations about whether or not she really was the mother, but whether she tricked y'all or that really was the case, but the baby was calling for Talia to be a mother. I think Nira was the only one, or maybe at first was the only one, that noticed the baby crying, although she couldn't see, or he couldn't see. No, Nira's a woman. Nira couldn't see the baby, but just heard it. So that's going on. Veli's sitting back here in the very back, not really engaging. He's just toking away on his pipe and hoping to find out what kind of magical properties it has. It could make his teeth fall out, could make his fingers fall off. He doesn't really know. He's just smoking away and hoping it's good results. So Stannon eventually kind of tackled these two and subdued them, talked Talia into dropping her daggers, and then Chloe, the Barbarian Woman, started screaming that the baby was gone, and everybody started kind of freaking out. Vigor slunk back into the shadows, maybe behind a building, behind people, but he's basically hiding, and Boo Boo is none the wiser, sitting there playing with little baby in his hand. Boo Boo's this giant 7-foot furball, so it's not like he's not going to be seen. Aya's hopped in this building. Some people started running around trying to find her. As of right now, she still has not been found. So that is basically where we left off in the last session. So not exactly where I thought they were going. They still need to talk to Stannon and see if he will transport them after all this. But we shall see in the next session. So there you have it. There's a recap of Session 83, Codelands, Hope and Despair. Hopefully that's beneficial to some of you guys. I'm not sure if I'll keep doing this or I'll go back to the written ones, but just give me some feedback. Let me know if you like it. Otherwise, I'll just ditch it. All right, guys. Thanks, and see you again next week.